Travellers in Europe are being warned of disruption over a series of strikes starting in Italy. Airport ground staff and flight attendants are planning a 4-hour strike on Saturday afternoon at various airports, including Milan, Pisa and Florence. We can now speak to the travel broadcaster and commentator Simon Calder. Simon, thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with Italy. Do we know what's happening there yet? And is the strike causing much disruption?
It certainly is, I'm afraid. This is a kind of repeat of the very, very frequent industrial action that we will get very often. Strikes really of just 4 hours by airport staff, by people working for individual airlines. We've also got a strike by some pilots belonging to EasyJet. Looking at the disruption on Saturday, the main problem seems to be at Milan Malpensa, the main airport in the north of Italy. We've got EasyJet cancellations to London, to Paris, to Athens, and a number of domestic flights as well. Looking at Rome's Fiumicino airport, the capital, of course, its main airport. The main disruption seems to be among the ITA airline, the national carrier, and we've got, for example, cancellations to and from Brussels and Zurich. And on top of that, looking more widely at places like Naples, a number of flights actually rescheduled to avoid the 4-hour delay, which of course causes disruption, but not to the extent that thousands of passengers are finding across Italy today by having their flights cancelled.
Right, and strikes also planned in France, aren't they, later for this week? Do we know if that might compare in terms of disruption?
It's going to be really quite a bigger scale, I think. So what's happening this coming week is a lot of protests against the government that's hoping to force through austerity measures, which some economists would say were much needed moves. But unfortunately, the government, which looks fairly likely to fall in the next couple of days, is getting massive opposition. There's a kind of loose coalition of groups calling themselves Bloc en Tout. Let's block everything. And they, on Wednesday, are very much hoping to ground many of the trains that are running across France, particularly the high-speed network, as well as causing disruption at airports, at seaports, and on the roads of France. It's difficult to see exactly what's going to happen because at the moment there's no clarity among the various groups. Unlike just looking ahead an extra week, you have French air traffic controllers going on strike again. And to give you some idea of this, we had industrial action by a relatively small number of controllers in France. That led to tens of thousands of passengers having their flights cancelled because so many aircraft, for instance, going from Northern Europe, Scandinavia, Germany, the UK, to places like Spain and Italy, have to go over French airspace. That causes mayhem as well.
So these strikes in different countries, clearly different conditions in different countries, but would you say on the whole they are mainly about the pay and working conditions for staff, or do they reflect deeper pressures across the transport sector? You mentioned France, of course. There's much more concern there about broader economic problems.
Yes, so if we take them all in turn, I mean, aviation has had a stressful summer with record numbers of flights, so there's a lot of people in the many groups that go towards getting a flight into the air who are taking action. In France, it's general unhappiness with the idea that the state should withdraw some of the generous provisions that it makes towards workers and so on. We've also got a strike that's going to be affecting people in London, actually starting as early as tomorrow for 5 days. This is on the London Underground, the famous tube system, and that is all to do with wanting a reduction from the current 35 hours a week to 32 hours. So it's all about people who are working in the high-stress business of transport really wanting to be either better rewarded or have a less stressful working life, or both. And unfortunately, with so many of these depending on public budgets and public spending, it's difficult to see how we're going to reach a conclusion before, well, millions more travellers are seriously inconvenienced.
Well, yes, and with repeated strikes, especially in aviation and rail, and we've had it in France, in the UK, Canada recently as well with flight attendants there. I mean, could this actually accelerate a shift towards maybe sustainable travel choices?
Really good question. It could do, particularly since aviation is so prone to any kind of disruption from any group of workers. However, the big fear is, and this is particularly the case among tourism bosses, that actually if you make it difficult for people to go to places, they won't switch from one mode of transport to another. They simply won't go. And since travel is such an important ingredient of the global economy, that's giving them plenty of concern.
Really great to talk to you, Simon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. That's Simon Calder.